Welcome to your astrological forecast for the week of Monday, June 17th through Sunday, June 23rd, 2024. This week, a lot is happening, and I've pretty much said that every week this year, but it's very much true, and I'll explain why. So, pretty much, we had so much happen, especially between the months of April and May this year. I think for many of us, this year has been particularly strange. A lot has happened, again, especially in those months of April and May. And so as we've gone through the end of May and then through much of June now, a lot of that intensity has kind of rippled out, and there have been kind of many of different effects and ramifications. And it's not as simple as saying, okay, this big thing happened and then now it's over. There are also so many things happening, so many life events for so many of us, and so much happening around the world as well. So that has really rippled out now. It started with Aries. That's where we had the Mercury retrograde. The eclipse season was centered around Aries. So that was particularly intense, since Aries is an intense sign. It was starting so much, for better or for worse. We had the opportunity for those things to ground in Taurus. However, because Uranus is there, we still had even more kind of earthquakes, so to speak, both literally and figuratively. So that was, again, in some ways we were stabilizing, but other ways there were further, aftershocks, I guess you could say. Gemini was all about diversifying. We're still in Gemini season. We actually had almost an overdose of Gemini recently when we had, just as I'm filming this, right now as I'm filming this, it's June 14th, Friday. Last week we had up to 5 planets in Gemini at one time, if you can call the Sun and Moon planets, which we do on this channel. So Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, and Jupiter were all in Gemini at the same time. So what does that mean for us? We've gone through a lot of diversifying, okay? I really do think the burst of Gemini energy was kind of a godsend after so much Aries and Taurus. Aries and Taurus are kind of intense. They're very heavy signs, I guess you could say. Gemini is air. We got a huge burst of air energy. We really hadn't had a lot of air placements in the charts for quite some time, and the air energy is great at kind of loosening things up. We can be a little bit silly. We can be detached. Gemini is kind of a curious, happy-go-lucky energy, and I think for many of us, of course, our experience is different depending on our own charts and things like that. But for many of us, I do think Gemini was literally a breath of fresh air, right? After that intensity from this spring. But as I mentioned in the forecast, not for this week, but the week prior, Gemini, it's scattered. It's all over the place. Gemini is a great energy for, not taking things too seriously, being kind of funny and jovial, as I mentioned. It's great for learning. It's great intellectual energy. But Gemini's openness and adaptability can lead us to some very strange and interesting places. It's kind of like it makes me think of the Wheel of Fortune tarot card. Because you just never know where the chips are going to fall, so to speak. You don't know where the wheel is going to stop turning, I guess you could say. That's how it is with Gemini. There's a lot of mystery and curiosity, and you never know what you're going to find. It's kind of an adventure. So I know some of us love that type of energy. Others of us that, particularly those of us that don't like change, or some of us may take things very seriously, we may really not embrace Gemini energy at all. But those of us that are a little bit detached, curious, adaptable, etc., we can embrace this energy. But yeah, so that's kind of what's been going on in a nutshell. Now, things are dramatically changing this week, though. And I want to really illustrate this by, I'm just going to show you the chart for, this is Sunday, June 16th, 2024. Let me actually make my screen slightly smaller so you can see the day. I think that's better. I think that makes it more clear. Okay, yeah, so the huge difference between Sunday and Monday, I know Sunday is technically just outside of what we're going to be talking about in this forecast, but Sunday, June 16th, you can see that we still have a huge dominance of Gemini energy. Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Jupiter are all in Gemini, so that's been very meaningful for any Gemini placements. Any of you that have Gemini Sun or Gemini Rising, it's been all about you. There's probably a lot going on with you. You're really coming out of your shell. You're transforming. You're starting new projects. What else? You may just be busier than usual, more active. You're getting more attention, etc. It's all about Gemini. Let's say you don't have Gemini Sun or Rising. Gemini's in your chart somewhere. You must have some placement there. Even if you have no placements in Gemini, what house is that? Whatever is kind of ruled over by that house, that's where all the focus is. Of course there are other things going on in the chart, but really, if I had to start somewhere, I would say lately it's been kind of all about Gemini. So yeah, is this your 10th house? Then all this kind of celebration and activity and energy has been in your career, your public life. If it's the opposite, maybe it's your 4th house, then it's your home life, etc. I don't want to get too into the weeds with these specifics right now in this forecast. But basically, wherever Gemini is in your chart, there's been a lot of activity and a lot of abundance, because Sun, Jupiter, and Venus, these are the 3 benefics. They make things easier. They make things light, pleasurable, fun. For those of us that do have a lot of Gemini placements, we've had a rough time because, with all these placements that were in Taurus and Aries, it's kind of the end of the chart for Gemini, if that makes sense. The signs leading up to your own sign, it may be a little bit more difficult to deal with transits in those areas, because it's the ending of your cycle, basically. So we've had a renewal of Gemini, basically. Okay. So anyway, Sunday, lots of Gemini still. If we switch over to Monday, June 17th, you can see the picture has dramatically changed. Both Mercury and Venus are set to enter Cancer on Monday. Not only that, though, right before Mercury and Venus enter Cancer, when they get to 29 degrees Gemini, which will technically happen early in the day, Monday, Eastern Standard Time, June 17th, right before they enter Cancer, both Mercury and Venus will square Neptune together. So, in other words, Mercury and Venus at 29 degrees Gemini, both pretty much at the same exact time, they square Neptune, which is at 29 degrees Pisces. And they do so just hours before, maybe even less than that. They make this square aspect right before they enter Cancer together. There's a lot to unpack here. This is a very rare aspect. It's a very rare phenomenon. But basically, let's talk about Mercury conjoining Venus, and then we'll talk about what the squares to Neptune mean. I like how my pointer is working. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I'm still on a pretty ghetto setup. I'm hoping to make some money so I can invest into this channel a little bit more. Anyway, okay, what does Mercury conjunct Venus mean? Mercury is the intellectual energy, it's the chatty energy, it's the learning energy, it's very observant, kind of detached. It's cerebral. It also has to do with money, connections, trading information, trading anything. That's Mercury. Venus is, it's the love goddess. It makes things pleasurable and fun, enjoyable. It's very sensual. So combining Mercury and Venus together is actually one of my favorite conjunctions, because it's a really great energy, number one, for learning, but also learning in a fun, kind of pleasurable way. It's really excellent for like a dinner. It always makes me think of a dinner party, something where you can have a like semi-sophisticated, intellectual conversations and having a pleasant time. And this would definitely be a very polite energy, but also very fun as well. You have a little bit of eccentricity with Mercury, but then everything is kind of like smoothened out by Venus as well. So really fun, really pleasurable, but also kind of intellectual. Excellent conversational energy, excellent social energy. What else? Even if you're not the most social person, maybe you're just like enjoying yourself and learning something, or doing something intellectual and pleasurable. Basically, that's what Mercury plus Venus, Mercury conjunct Venus, would mean, especially at the very end of Gemini. Very intellectual still. And technically, like I mentioned, that's where this aspect is gonna happen. That's where they're gonna square Neptune. I'm sorry, I just moved everything, but I just want to show you. I guess it happens very early in the day on Monday. Okay, so here you can see. Technically, let's just go to midnight. So midnight, going into Monday, June 17th, Mercury and Venus still at 29 degrees Gemini. They're pretty much conjunct, and they are squaring Neptune. All right, so we've established this like really fun, pleasurable, social, but also intellectual energy. That is, we really get this burst of it. You can even feel this Sunday, especially in the latter half of the day on Sunday. What's interesting, though, is that the squares that both Mercury and Venus are making to Neptune, that channels in Neptune's energies, okay? So we don't just have this fun social whatever, that is going on, but it's channeling in this much more bizarre, strange, kind of spiritual energy of Neptune, which is at the end of Pisces. Don't get excited though. Neptune, although it looks like it's about to enter Aries, Neptune's about to retrograde, and it'll actually stay in Pisces until about halfway through next year. So I am very excited for Neptune to leave Pisces. It's actually been in Pisces since before I started learning about astrology. So that's been well over 12 years that I've been into astrology, and Neptune's been in Pisces that whole time. But anyway, so Mercury and Venus conjunct at the end of Gemini, squaring Neptune. Right. So we may be learning in a pleasurable way. We may have some really enjoyable social interactions, but there's something ethereal. There's something strange or curious about these events, these activities that we're having. We may learn something, but it may be a puzzle piece that's connecting into something much larger. We're learning something metaphysical in nature, something philosophical, or maybe we're having a conversation or some kind of interaction with others, or maybe getting a piece of information that really affects us on a much deeper level, on a spiritual level, on a soulful level, etc. That's pretty much what I'd have to say about that. Because this is a square aspect, or I guess technically it's two squares happening at the same time, that would mean the squares are contentious. They can be a little bit difficult or stressful, but they also correlate to times of change. Okay, so Neptune being squared by Mercury and Venus, this means that something is stirring within us. Something is changing related to, again, not only the intellectual and pleasurable energy, but also spiritually deep, the deeper psyche, the deeper, connecting with the stars, the cosmos, religion, philosophy, whatever. Connecting with our own soul. I believe we are all God. God is within all of us. We are all energy. Everything is conscious. That's what I believe. But you can believe your own thing. We can all, we are all having these different experiences, and we're all part of the same consciousness, but we feel so separate in these lifetimes. Anyway, that's what I believe. But these are the types of things that may come up for you. You may just be having like a very, I don't know, nonchalant, kind of mundane conversation with a coworker, and then all of a sudden, I don't know, something strikes you. You may get a feeling, you may get a knowing. Maybe something very deep comes up, something about life or death or feelings, spirituality, philosophy. Do you get what I'm saying? It's going to be a little bit different for all of us, but that's what I would say generally speaking. Okay, so this is a funky one. I think it looks like a lot of fun, though. I really do. But the more open you are, the more fun this can be. Neptune can be very strange. I would say the farther out the outer planets get, the more far out they are, literally. They tend to be very abstract or kind of alien in nature because they're farther from the sun. They're more obscure. They're more abstract. Neptune is a great example of that. So that's going to be channeling into our day-to-day experience. Like I said, you may experience this on Sunday, but also especially Monday as well. All right. And then Monday, there is that huge shift where, it's very interesting how this is going to be weird. Like I said, it's going to be different for everyone, but something weird is kind of happening with the information, the conversations. Pay attention to all this. Pay attention to your thoughts. Many of us that follow this kind of information are intuitive, or we may pick up on patterns and things like that. You may be surprised by what you learn or what you experience. Again, late Sunday, early Monday, late June 16th, early June 17th. Pay special attention to that. And then there is this transition very early in the day, Monday, June 17th, where Mercury and Venus then immediately enter Cancer together. And technically, that's where they actually make that exact conjunction at 0 degrees Cancer. So suddenly, when it comes to the information, the intellectual energy, the pleasure, the desire, all of that shifts. Rather than being very scattered and intellectual, we're wanting to get a little bit deeper. This is a heavier energy. We're wanting to settle down a little bit. Let's focus on, what's in the heart, what's in the feelings. We've had so much mental energy over the last couple of weeks, and that was great. Hopefully we learned a lot. Maybe we diversified, we branched out. Now it's time to kind of take it home. We're approaching Cancer season, and Mercury and Venus are already there. Okay, Mercury and Venus have moved on. They've left the sun. Peace out, sun. We're in Cancer now. So that brings up all these themes of mother and home and emotion. And, again, it's really interesting, the transition of Gemini turning into Cancer, basically, because they are very different signs. Gemini has to do with thoughts, Cancer has to do with feelings. Okay, Gemini wants to branch out and scatter everywhere, and I think inevitably when we go through these Gemini transits, we branch out and we experience so much that eventually it's only a matter of time before these feelings catch up to us, before the significance of everything that's just transpired during this really crazy, like, scattered sign that is Gemini. Eventually, like, the karma kind of catches up to you, or the feelings catch up to you. In a sense, I'm kind of struggling with the wording. But eventually there's a lot of feeling that comes from the craziness of Gemini, if that makes sense. So this just shows that we're already transitioning into Cancer, rather than purely just thinking from a detached intellectual standpoint or analytical. With Mercury and Cancer, we're actually having a more intuitive approach to our logic or to thoughts, and that's rational as well. I always say there's a lot of intelligence in emotion, and that's kind of the theme of Mercury and Cancer. But again, with Venus and Cancer now as well, we're desiring, let's, rather than being all scattered and trying new things, being so experimental and wild, let's settle down and kind of pick a more conservative route, so to speak. Let's pick whatever has been working. Cancer is definitely a less risk-taking sign than Gemini is, so things may actually settle down a little bit. Could we be more emotional with these placements going into Cancer? Absolutely. It's just, I guess you could say it's a different kind of craziness. Every sign is crazy in their own way, right? All right, I think I spent more than enough time on June 17th. Let's go to Thursday, June 20th. So this is the day where the sun actually, well, technically it doesn't catch up to Venus and Mercury, but it does enter Cancer. So this is the summer solstice in the northern hemisphere, winter solstice for those of you that are down in the south. This is the longest day of the year, in the north, of course. But wherever you are in the world, this is a very important day. This is one of the days that is celebrated by the pagan religions or practices, spirituality. Really, in a lot of different cultures, it's some kind of holiday. It's celebrated. This is an excellent day for doing any kind of like rituals or manifesting. Really, and the reason why is kind of obvious. In the north, we have the highest abundance of light at this time. The farther north you are, the more extreme that's going to get for you. That's where, up north in Alaska and Norway, they're having light out till 1 or 2 a.m. That's what this day is. I think most of you probably know that. But I mean, think about it. Having that light, that energy, of course, that's going to be a prominent time for manifesting or doing some kind of ritual, involving manifesting. Some cultures do sacrifice and stuff like that. I shouldn't even mention that. I'm not advocating that by any means. But I'm just saying this is what different people recognize the power of this day. Okay. So that's why I think I'm titling this like something about a portal. That's what this is. This is the portal. Okay. This is where you can shift your timelines. You can really change things in a dramatic way based on your own thoughts, feelings, perspective, beliefs, etc. Yeah. Okay. And other than that, on a more kind of mundane astrological level, it's the transition of Gemini to Cancer that I was just talking about. Mercury and Venus already did this. Now the sun is doing this as well. So now we really are starting out with quite a bit of Cancer energy with Mercury, Venus, and sun all now in Cancer. I know technically the chart I'm showing you has sun still in Gemini, but looks like it will be in the afternoon Eastern Standard Time where sun technically enters Cancer. And then we go really full force into the emotion, the feeling, the intuition. Cancer is the most emotional time. Cancer, I'll give you my spiel on Cancer real quick. So what's interesting about Cancer, and in a weird way, you can almost apply this to Capricorn as well in an opposite way, since they are opposite signs. Cancer is the first sign. It's almost the beginning of the end, if you think about it, because what comes with and this is going to be northern hemisphere focus, so I apologize to you southern people, but you are the minority on this channel. I'm sorry, it's true. But okay, the northern hemisphere. So yeah, it's excellent to have the longest day of the year. We can celebrate that. It's the beginning of summer. I think many of us look forward to summer, especially in those northern latitudes, and that's a really fun time. It starts, family vacations and barbecues, and some of us have different holidays around this time of year. it's a great time. It's a lot of fun, etc. There's the warmth, the vibrant energy of the sun and summer and all that. So in many ways, Cancer is a very cheerful sign. It can be very optimistic. Cancer can be very funny. But Cancer can also be very kind of gloomy as well. It's really kind of a double-sided sign. And I think at first, Cancer, if you just meet people who have something in Cancer, I think they can have a very positive disposition. Of course, that varies depending on the person. But once you get to know them, they can actually have these very deep moods, and there's a darkness there as well. The reason why is because with that brightest day of the year, that means that that's the peak. It's all downhill from here, so to speak. The days are getting shorter now after this. So yes, it's a great time. It's beginning summer. It's beginning that really prominent, happy, warm, vibrant time. But it's also the beginning of the end. It's showing the days are getting shorter. So in a weird way, Cancer is the first sign that knows that, it's not just going to keep getting brighter and more vibrant. There will be a darkness. Fall will come. Winter will come. Cancer knows that, okay? And in a weird, I think this is interesting, but Capricorn is almost the opposite of that, where they seem very cynical and kind of negative, but deep down they're very resilient and they trust the future, right? They're all about the future. That's why, because Capricorn's the exact opposite. It starts with the the darkest day of the year, but the days are getting longer. So that's why Capricorn knows about the future. It's investing in the future. It knows the days are getting longer. Cancer's the opposite. It knows the days are getting shorter. So it's Cancer's kind of saying, yeah, let's party now because, the death is coming, the darkness is coming, the hardship is coming, etc. So that's where, when you add it all together, Cancer is actually kind of a melancholy sign. It's a little bittersweet. It can be a great time. It can be a lot of fun. But there's almost this tinge of darkness there as well. So I think if you approach it that way, it really, just think about it. It really tells you a lot about the nature of Cancer. Okay, that's pretty much what I have to say. Let's go to Friday, June 21st. I do think it's very interesting that only one day after the sun, the summer solstice, the sun moving into Cancer, one day later we have a full moon occurring at 1 degree Capricorn. Excuse me. Yeah, and it looks like it is really close to midnight. So depending on your time zone, don't fact check me. It may be Saturday, June 22nd in your time zone. It just kind of depends on where you are. But basically, the full moon, you'll really experience this for, I would say, all of Friday and all of Saturday, because full moons are potent enough. They kind of spill over into, neighboring days, I would say, for sure. So definitely Friday and Saturday, this is the full moon in Capricorn. Like any full moon, this is a culmination. And it's funny, I was actually just talking about Capricorn. Let's see. But this is an interesting one, because with this full moon, I always say full moons aren't just about the moon. They're about the sun. It's a sun-moon opposition. That's what a full moon is. That's a fancy way of saying it. So to interpret a full moon, it's not just about the moon. It's about the sun pretty much just as much, in my opinion. So for this one, the reason why it's kind of funky is because sun is in Cancer, which is the moon sign. So sun is in the house of the moon, as they would say in more ancient terminology. So the sun is actually ruled by the moon. It's dominated by the moon, as are Mercury and Venus, if you want to throw them in there as well. They're in the moon's house, so to speak. But the moon is making a direct aspect with them, so the moon can be a sort of caretaker in a way. However, the moon is in Capricorn, where it's in detriment. So we have this weird energy of, the moon is kind of in charge. The moon is literally being spotlit, because it's a full moon and all that. And the moon rules over these multiple other placements. So the moon is strong in that regard, but then it's exiled. It's in detriment. It's debilitated. Moon has a rough time in Capricorn. So, okay, so how would I interpret that? I would say this full moon may be a little bit kind of creepy or eerie. There may be something a little off kilter. We may be very much in touch with our emotions, and we can feel very strongly and very clearly, but there's something strange about what we're feeling. It's not that we aren't sure of what we're feeling. We know what we're feeling. It's just that we may feel a little bit alien or unlike ourselves. We may be feeling a little bit out of character, or we may be picking up on some kind of dark vibes, and there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes we have to shine the light into the darkness to make the dark illuminated. But yeah, there could be some dark themes there. What else? Another focus would be to go back to what I was saying earlier. Cancer and Capricorn are both cardinal signs. They both follow these solstices, summer and winter solstices. And that's why, I think in different ways, both Cancer and Capricorn are very much focused on the future. So this is the energy of like planning, maybe coming up with a new plan, or it may be based on feeling as well. Both of these signs are very instinctual. Cancer is maybe the more obvious one that's very emotional, but Capricorn as well, it's actually not one of the intellectual signs. Capricorn is very practical, and I would argue that pragmatism comes from a place of instinct and emotion. If you actually know Capricorns, they can be detached, but I think they're actually very emotional. They just control it. They keep it within, almost reminiscent of Scorpio. Okay, I don't know if that sounds too crazy, but I think that's true. So my point is, yes, we're focused on the future. Maybe part of that, both, not just Capricorn, but Cancer as well, can be very practical. But again, that practicality is coming from a place of emotion and instinct. There can actually be a lot of common sense and intelligence that comes from a place of emotion. Okay, so that is the theme of this full moon. Like any full moon, it may be a little bit crazy. You have all those kind of standard stereotypes of the full moon. People being kind of riled up, especially because this is a Friday night as well. So yeah, we may be up later, we may be rowdy and maybe a little bit more reckless, definitely more emotional than usual. But again, as far as full moons go, this may be especially focused on changing our plans, focusing on the long term, and especially like addressing our needs, addressing our emotional and instinctual needs in a long-term context. So like, I don't know, plans involving family or whoever you live with at home, like whatever your family is, maybe that's a romantic partner, whatever that is for you, like, focusing on those kinds of plans, or it could just be focusing on those kinds of feelings in general. But again, maybe focus on the intelligence that comes from those feelings. And also, this is another great day for manifestation as well, Thursday and Friday. The thing in common between both of these events, the summer solstice and the full moon, both are culminations. Both are, in different ways, both are the peaks of light, basically. Summer solstice is the longest day of the year. The full moon is where the moon has the most light. They're both peaks of light, peaks of energy. So I could see some wild parties happening, even on Thursday, as weird as that sounds. But let's just say Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I could see wild parties, celebrations, expenditures of energy, because we can almost be kind of like, I'm not saying to be reckless necessarily, but this isn't Virgo or Scorpio season. We don't have to be cautious and like conserve energy. It's almost like we have so much energy at our disposal right now. To me, this is kind of like party energy. We can just be happy and celebratory. And yes, we may kind of channel in some dark energy from this detrimented full moon, but that's still within the context of like an overflow of energy. I know that sounds contradictory, but sometimes these energies can be contradictory. So I'm just giving it to you as I see it. So I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions, definitely let me know. Leave me a comment. But yeah, that's pretty much what I see for you for this week. So it's going to be an interesting one. We've got some really funky aspects, and we definitely have multiple things happening that are going to dramatically change the picture. We have, you could call it plot twist energy. We're entering a new chapter in many different ways. So I really hope that you all have an excellent week. I hope that this was interesting or fun for you. Thanks for hanging out with me for this half an hour. And again, let me know any of your comments. Let me know what you're observing or what you're going through, what your astrology is. I would love to hear it. And I forgot to mention, but please, if you're interested in getting a reading, that's what helps support this channel. So you can find more information in the description. And you can go to my website, manic.mercurian.net. Okay, thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.